Hi guys, in this lecture we are going to learn about writing test cases for asynchronous code. So usually when it comes to asynchronous level of testing, it is quite different from all the level of testings that we have already wrote. Because usually we write test cases for synchronous code, and when it comes to asynchronous testing, there needs to be level of what do you say async await and all those stuff. And usually when it comes to Jasmine framework, there is something called fake async, tick when stable, fixture.text changes. All these stuff are related to asynchronous code. So how do we exactly write an asynchronous test? So what we'll do is we have a couple of asynchronous operation. For instance, adding post to our HTML server, or deleting a post from it. So those things are remaining off in our code coverage. So what I'll do is I'll write an asynchronous test for both the remaining specs that is yet to be written. So the first thing is add post and the next thing is delete post. These both are asynchronous, and we don't want to be providing them with actual server implementation, because it might actually remove the data from the server, and we don't want it to be happening. So I'm just going to reuse the mock services that we provided earlier. I'm just going to create two other functions like mock functions, similar to the one that we created earlier, and it needs to be an exact replica of the one that is available in the post service, so that the actual implementation doesn't differ. So as you can see, it is an observable, and we are subscribing to it. So what are the things that we need to know when it comes to subscription? There are methods like call, fake, call through, to have been called with, to have been called, to have been called times. All these stuff are related to asynchronous testing. So let's see how each and everything goes as we travel along in this lecture. So the first thing what I did was I created an add post method, and it seems like an exact replica of the add post. So it, since it is returning an observable with the actual post. So usually what happens is when a post request is being sent to server, it comes back with an ID. So that is what we have done as well. So we have actually added an ID to it. So after that, what we are doing is we are actually implementing a method for delete post as well. So in delete post, we are returning an ID actually. So what does the delete post actually do here? It is going to be returning a value of the ID that is being passed along, and it actually deletes the method there. So this is how it happens. So the delete post is going to be the same actual implementation. What we'll do is we'll first write a spec for the add post. So we are simply going to call that method component.addPost, and in turn what it is going to do is, instead of actually relying on the service, it is going to call the fake implementation that we just created. So if you look into the add post component, it is simply subscribing to it, and it is using all the values to update the local post. So what we'll do is we'll just pass in a post component. I'll just give it a simple title, and I'll just add a body to it. Or maybe I think even this is more than enough, because that's just the required field. So we simply detect changes. Before that, what we do is we spy on the actual service. Here the service that we are going to use is post service. So this is going to have all the methods. And in order to use that, you need to instantiate it somewhere. What we'll do is we'll use let, and we'll instantiate the service. We can simply get it from the testbed, I think. Post service, yeah, exactly. So now we have the service component. So in service we can spy on that particular method. and the method is add post. Yeah, add post it is. So in add post, what we are going to do is we can either return value here itself. So even the mock service is going to do the same set of service for us. So either you can leave it as such, and the mock service will be used, and you can check on the spy reference and expect it to have been called. So this is one way of doing it. Or the other way of doing it is you can return a fake value directly here, and what happens is even the mock service will not be called, and instead of that the call fake method gets invoked, and you can return some sort of the same object here. So I'm just going to give it as such. But since actually a post object needs to be utilized here, I think this is not a viable option, because we won't be having access to the actual passed in parameter. So what can be done is we can simply use the spy reference to invoke a method called call through, and this call fake can be used somewhere in deleting stuff where the actual thing won't be of any use. So I'm just going to paste it, and instead of using a fake call, I'm just going to um, give a simple call through method so that the subscription occurs. So I'm just going to return a value, and in a return value I'm just going to give the exact same thing, but just like I said, call fake or return value implementation doesn't have access to the actual post that is being passed, so even this method is not going to work properly. So what I'll do is I'll just simply comment this out as well. So what exactly are we going to do? I would say that we can simply let it run just from the mock service, because the mock service will actually have a hold of the object that is being passed. So we can simply expect the spy reference to have been called. Yeah, that will mostly do. Or if you want it to be a bit more specific, what you can do is you can actually look for the value that is being passed. For instance, once you're doing some sort of programming logic in passing few data, you actually want to pass the property, and as you can see it cannot read the property of undefined. So this is what I've been talking about. So the subscription is not happening, and the reason is because if you look into our mock service, we made a small mistake, I guess. So in the add post method, we are actually what we are doing is we are just passing the title, and if you look into the subscription, we need more parameters like body, because the substring and all those stuff is being taken from the actual post. So I think it is missing few lines here and there. Also I'll just comment this out, and we'll use the call fake for now. So for now what we are doing is we are expecting it to return a value that is being passed from the fake async that we have created. And of course the other error, as I was saying, the substring is missing because we didn't pass the body. So if we look closely, we need to pass more parameters to it. So the first thing that is being passed is the post, and since it is not complete right now, what we can do is we can simply add it to the post method itself. I'm just going to give you some random text here. So this is going to be invoked for substring methods, and the total likes and all those stuff doesn't need the actual hold of the post. and the id is being passed, so no issues. So now once we reload it, it is going to be returning the actual values. So I'll just refresh it for you guys. Yeah, as you can see, it's passing, I guess. So I think we'll give it some time. Yeah, it works. It works. Of course, it works. Okay, so this is how an implementation works. So it is actually adding the post, and if you look into the code coverage, that is a considerable amount of increase in the code coverage because the add post is successfully happening. Also, we are still lacking on the other functionality, that is delete post. So even that could be covered right now. I think it is much similar to what we did right now. So instead of just using a fake async method, we can simply use a call through when it comes to subscription, and we don't need the hold of the object. We can simply use this. So this is one way to do it. um, I think this is actually the cleaner way of doing it, because what happens with call through is it actually runs the implementation, and as you can see, the test is perfectly fine. So there are more methods to do the same thing over and over again. So we just saw around 2 3 methods, and why one is being preferred over other. So for delete function, I'm pretty sure you guys might have figured how to do this stuff. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to instantiate a spy reference, and since this doesn't need a hold of the object, we are just passing the id. I don't think we need to actually use the actual implementation. So I'm just going to return some random value because it doesn't matter, because we are not doing anything with the value that is being returned. But still we want it to be an observable, so I'm just wrapping it with off, just in case, because subscription to null is not possible. So we are giving it as off null, and we are invoking the component delete method by passing an id. uh, since we don't have an id here, I'm just going to give randomly as 1, because we need to delete something, right? So I'm just going to give it as 1, and we are using fixture dot detect changes. So this is going to be invoked, and once the fixture is stable, we can expect the result. So what we are doing is we expect the spy reference to have been called, or to have been called with the particular id, which in our case is going to be 1. So this is what we are expecting. uh, Actually, I think this should work. So this is a logical implementation, and we don't have much problem in working with this. So if you are running this, I'm pretty sure wow, that's failing. Add push to have. Okay, I got it. The reason is because the spy reference is still referring to add post. It should be delete post actually. I didn't change it while I copied. So I'll just copy the delete post, and once you invoke the delete method, we expect the spy reference with the delete post to have been called with 1. So that's our simple expectation. I'm pretty sure this is going to pass right now. We'll give it some time. Yeah, exactly. So this is how you write the test, guys. So we have seen working with an actual implementation of adding post and deleting post. So we have our test cases, and we have our code coverage, and 100% of our code is being covered. So I guess you don't need to worry much about the service files, because every time we are using a stub, the service is going to get a low coverage, because this is not being used, and actually that's a good sign. You don't want to be messing with the actual implementations. So I think from our part, we have completely covered all the asynchronous code. So that's it for now, guys.